back to the Contrarians. Today we have another Patreon-decided album battle. We're shooting out the Scorpions, Blackout, versus Accept, Balls to the Wall. I know
There you go. There's my fully signed. I get to show it again.
Very nice. These albums came out a couple of years apart. Blackout,
in fact, both fully signed. There you go.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ironically, you were probably hanging that on a wall. Blackout was released in March 1982, certified gold in just 3 months, certified platinum in 1984. Balls to the Wall released December 83 in the rest of the world, January 84 in America. It remains Accept's only certified album, being certified gold in 1990. So in terms of commercial success, there's absolutely no comparison between these two albums. In terms of artistic merit, well, I guess that's where we'll get into the meat of this discussion. So compare and contrast the albums, give us whatever thoughts you have, and pick a winner for us. Andee, I'm going to start with you today.
Okay, great. Well, full disclosure, I'm here to talk about Accept. I'm not going to say very much about Scorpions. I've got my copy of Blackout. This is probably my favorite Scorpions album. I think it's their tightest, their most consistent, best recorded. As much as I love Uli Roth, I think the albums from his tenure are a little bit uneven, a little bit all over the place. I don't mind the Americanized sound here. I think Matthias Yabs, I think that's how you pronounce his name, is a woefully under-discussed guitar player. I don't know why people don't talk about him in the same breath as Randy Rhoads and George Lynch and people like that. I think maybe it's because he wasn't part of a scene like those guys were. I think this is about as good as it gets for me with Scorpions. There's one funny thing about this album. There's 2 songs that are back to back. No One Like You and You Give Me All I Need.
All I Need. Yep.
They're very, very similar songs, which is something I had not thought about until I think I read an All Music Guide review of the album that pointed that out. And I was like, he's right. They're like the same song, except one of them is way better. So that was kind of a missed opportunity maybe in the sequencing. And I don't know, you Give Me All I Need is a little bit of a filler song, but I love Dynamite and I love China White, and again, the guitar playing, there's such a like playful, slippery, effortless virtuosity about that guy. Don't know why people don't talk about him more. Now, when it comes to Accept, I think Accept is one of the most unique metal bands of all time. They're one of my favorite metal bands of all time, and I think Balls to the Wall is their best album. I'm going to try to talk about what makes them so unique. So I got this is shameful, but I've got a copy with no liner note or no cover, but I have a crusty old vinyl copy. So there we go. The visuals are going to be part of the whole overview here. But as far as the music, I would say this is sort of the platonic ideal of a heavy metal album in 1984. It kind of takes the best things of Judas Priest and AC/DC and just puts it together in the most satisfying way. You've got the tight, compact grooves with a rhythm section that never puts a single note out of place. And on top of that, you get these Judas Priest-like, perfectly executed, palm-muted, killer riffs with a very European slant. So it's definitely more sophisticated riffing than AC/DC, but the tightness of the groove is really what kind of gives it an AC/DC like quality. Love Wolf Hoffman. I think that he's obviously a guy that listened to Schenker and probably Uli Roth and Blackmore, but he doesn't sound like those guys. He's got his own vibe. I love that his solos take on a little bit of a neoclassical bent here and there. Turn Me On is probably my favorite. Love Child has also a really classy kind of neoclassical European metal solo. And then, of course, you have Udo, who is just an absolute one-off. You can't really compare him to anyone. He's like a kind of a screamer, but he can carry a melody. There are some songs on here that are truly catchy and melodic, but they're never going to be mainstream because of him. Just the timbre of his voice and the weirdness of his delivery, his pig squeals, his grunts, his groans. I mean, it's really out there vocalizing. I think he's I think he's just like a fearless motherfucker when it comes to looking the way he does and sounding the way he does. Let's see. What do I want to you know, production wise, this is, I think, their best album. I think this is the best sounding metal album of 1984. Maybe I would put any album from the 80s up against this. This is just a perfectly recorded 80s metal album. It's got just enough ambience on the drums. The guitar sound, no one has topped it, in my opinion. It's got a little bit of outside things thrown in. It's got the little bit of what do they call those? The electronic toms,
Simmons.
Simmons toms,
Simmons.
which I always enjoyed hearing little splashes of those mixed in with metal albums. I think that sounds cool. And then you get like some bells, you get some orchestra bells, and Guardian of the Night has that cool classical sounding acoustic guitar intro, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you get some extra, you get some classy kind of, outside instrumentation. Just some of the greatest riffs of all time. And I think that there's so much melody and just songcraft in here mixed with this extreme, kind of pulverizing delivery. I want to talk about the lyrics. Okay. So I didn't know that Davey was Wolf Hoffman's girlfriend or wife. Actually, Martin, I might have learned that from your Accept book.
Yeah. I was just updating that book. So both my Accept and Scorpions books are coming out again with new titles and updated. So I've been going through them in the last couple of months, and I can't quite remember when the marriage happens. And apparently they're not together now again. So somewhere along the way, they are husband and wife, I believe.
Yeah. So I find that, I was, in a way, I wasn't surprised to learn that, because the lyrics on this album, so she apparently speaks English better than the other guys in the band. However, she's not like that fluent of an English speaker. So you get these interesting little turns of phrase, which I'll kind of get to a few examples of that. Sometimes they're humorous, probably not intentionally. Sometimes they're kind of poetic, but you can tell there's a more sensitive point of view here. There is a female point of view. There's a real ambiguity in the sexual content in the lyrics. Feeling the power of lust when the guy passes by. You have don't know what I am, a woman or a man, those kind of lines. And you have like the sexual is such a sexually charged album. You have like there might be some homosexuality in here. There's like this voyeurism of head over heels, like the speakers like surreptitiously watching a couple like fuck in the park and wants to be involved. And it sounds like forbidden, 80s gay sex, frankly. But then there's all this sensitivity in the lyrics, losing more than you've ever had. It's like this guy is addressing the ex-boyfriend of his girlfriend, and being cool about it. And he's saying, before I passed by, I was collecting dreams of her heart, and then she was reborn in my arms. Like that's just gorgeous. Losers and winners, write a letter, you'll feel better. Which is one of the funny moments, just these manly German voices saying, write a letter. But that's such a girl kind of thing, be sensitive and write her a letter, tell her your feelings. And then, Winter Dreams is really like, it's kind of reflective. The cold blue sky gives me the innocence I need. Guardian of the Night, Mister, don't you know what I am? Can't you hear it trembling in my voice? Like in 1984, nobody in metal bands is writing these kind of lyrics. Everything is like trying too hard. I'm a big man. I slay all these groupies, or whatever. I'm gonna kill you, or I'm
gonna rock.
partying. Line up the shots. Let's go. Then you have this kind of revolutionary common man rising up against authority theme in this album. Balls to the wall. Bondage is over the human race. They believe the slaves always lose. Be always independent. Surrender in no way. Fight it back. There's an inscription on the album cover on the back, dedicated to an unknown majority who have the same problems, the same rights, the same dreams as you and me. And then you gotta take into account the picture of Udo, who is wearing fatigue. So he looks like a Che Guevara or a revolutionary, like guerrilla leader or something. And then the other guys are literally, they have their arms linked. So they're brothers in arms. This is like a military operation in a way. And the music sounds like that. So there's all I can say is you add all that up and like show me one other album or band that does anything that sounds that projects all that at the same time. So that's going to bring me finally to the visuals. Whenever I see anyone talking about this, it's always dudes, and they always complain about this album cover. I don't want to look at some dude's crotch. Sort of telegraphing, I am very straight. Trust me. Or as George Costanza said, as someone with an unblemished record of staunch heterosexuality, I say this album cover sucks. I fucking love this album cover.
Me too.
How bold is this for a metal band, a heteronormative genre like heavy metal in the 80s? They put out an album, looks like a Robert Mapplethorpe photograph. It's kinky. It's very heavy metal. It's mysterious. It's bold. It's so confident. There's no writing on it. This is not a huge band. I mean, to put out an album, they don't even put their name on the front and just say, here's this. He's holding a ball. It connects to the wall, balls to the wall theme. But it's also like, well, what else is going on? I don't know. But it relates to all the sexuality of this album and the sexual ambiguity of this album. And I just love that everyone in the band was cool with all of that. Like, they weren't like, no, we got to change these lyrics. Now, what if someone thinks we're gay? They were just cool with it. So I just think that I love the whole run of albums they did, pretty much all of them from the 80s. And this is my favorite. I think they've got so many interesting angles. I think their presentation and their delivery is so satisfying. And just one last thing about the lyrics, like they've got a singer now that's an American, right? And he ostensibly speaks better English. And guess what? I don't think their lyrics are any good now. Like, they're just really dull, I think, from what I've heard. I would much rather hear these accidental moments of kind of weird poetry. You get funny things in here. I was going to say that, go piss the accepted, screw them all. What is the other one in Turn Me On? I know that you'd like some light, but sorry, there is no lamp. I love stuff like that. I mean, give me things like that all day instead of cliches like under the gun, on the run, down on my knees, begging you, please. Feel the fire, my desire, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what a bad English speaking lyricist will do. This is somebody that doesn't know English that well and just comes out with really cool, thought provoking lines to chew on, but with actual themes in there that mean something. So for me, if I'm picking between these two albums, it's Accept, absolutely top to bottom. I love every single song on this album, and I think it's so much more unique. And I wish there were more bands like this, frankly. Yeah, that's it. Accept, balls to the wall.
Wicked. Nice job, Andy. That was really cool.
That's
Yeah.
that's going to be a tough opener to beat.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. I gotta
I
follow
will
that.
I will just say if there were more bands like Accept, then you wouldn't enjoy them as much. You dilute your enjoyment. So
Yeah,
uniqueness,
true.
you get lots of points for that. Okay, man, there's so much. I hope I remember a quarter of that because I have thoughts and no way to write them down. So we'll just see what old brain remembers when we get to my time. I'm gonna go down to Elder. Elder.
All right. All right. Well, Andy, you made a lot of good points, and something I'm going to expound on maybe on a couple of things. But first, we'll go over the Blackout album. And I agree with you that I always thought that No One Like You and Give Me All I Need were like pretty much the same song. I don't know why they didn't put like Arizona on side one and put that on side two, because then you wouldn't have been so obvious. And I remember when getting this album, I was pretty excited because I was, into the Scorpions and stuff and already. And you hear Blackout, you hear Can't Live Without You, and then of course I'd seen the video for No One Like You, so that's okay, good song. But then Give Me All I Need comes on, I'm like, what's going on here, But then it picks up again, and pretty much the rest of the album is really good. I like especially like the closer when the smoke is going down, and China White. Those are two cool songs. I like When the Smoke is Going Down. He's talking about after a show and looking at the stage and thinking of the crowd and all that. I think that was pretty cool. So that's pretty much that album. And then the production, at first I thought this was going to be a Deirdre Dix battle, but I guess not. I guess he produced this, but the Accept album was recorded as a studio, but he didn't produce it. So but I always liked this album. I don't know if it's my favorite of the after Yuli era. I like my favorite album is probably Taken by Force by them, but and the after Yuli era, and I know it always goes between the three, the Love Drive, Animal Magnetism, or this. It always is, I always go back and forth between that. So anyway, but and then so let's go to Accept. First off, I'm gonna show off my autographs. When I met, I guess that's Peter Baltz at a Perkins in Englewood, Ohio, after they opened up for Ozzy. May 31st, 1984. I can't remember if I was there or we were driving by and we saw their bus and we pulled in. But anyway, pulled in there. They're nice guys. Talked to them for a little bit. Really cool. They were kind of quiet. And I don't know if that was because maybe they didn't understand English so well and there's a bunch of us talking, or if they just wanted us to get the hell out of there so they could eat. I don't know. But anyway. And then my other autograph is with Udo. I was fortunate enough to be in a band that played Bang Your Head Festival 2003 and met a bunch of people there, but I got Udo's autograph, so that was pretty cool. And then the time I got to see him with Crocus. All right, anyway, so Accept Balls to the Wall. I listening to this album again is, I always liked that the ambiguity of this kind of upset some people. I remember some of my friends were like, well, I don't know what's going on with these guys. Now, I will say, if you saw them live on this tour, they do kind of play that up. They are kind of grabbing each other and stuff on stage. And so that kind of adds to maybe that naughtiness, that sexuality thing. But yeah, I always thought the lyrics were pretty wild. Ambiguity, sexual ambiguity, feeling lust as the guys walking by, as the girls walking by. And I think it's Losers and Winners, he also says, why don't you take it easy and screw the girl that's next to you? I always thought that was a pretty good lyric. I don't know what that means, really.
Saying love the one you're with.
Yeah. So anyway, really good fan of this album, and I think I like this one better than Blackout. To me, it's just heavier. And then this is one of those, it's just my favorite Accept album. I always go back. I like Metal Heart a lot. I like Restless and Wild a lot. I like Breaker. But production wise, this is really a good, just like you said, the guitar tones are on here great. You've got a great bass sound when that bass solo comes in for Balls to the Wall when they're doing the sing along. That's just so awesome when it drops in at the beginning of the song with just that. It's just riding the E, but it's just so cool. And then Winter Dreams, I've always liked. I always I have around Christmas time, I have a mixed list or whatever. that's always on my list to put on for songs. Winter Dreams, just feel it hits the mood right. So anyway, yeah, but I'm gonna say I like Accept over Scorpions in this one as well. It's heavier. I like the sequencing better, and I like the lyrics. The lyrics on the Scorpions can get a little cliche with some of the songs, but this is just like, yeah, you never heard, like you said, a band like this. It was a very unique band. Udo was a very unique vocalist. And yeah, so there you go. So Accept over the Scorpions for me as well.
Okay. Make sure the mic is on. It is. Okay. Yes. Very good. So two
Nice.
solid wins for Accept. Let's see what Martin, you're the only person on the panel who has written a book on each band.
Okay.
So, hopefully you have thoughts.
All right. Yeah, I have some thoughts. It's interesting. If I was asked to compare two albums and do a direct comparison, I would have gone with Blackout against Metal Heart. To me, well, the album cover is the same, but they're both Dieter Dierks, and to me, both of these records are the Peaks and Valleys albums. I always have this thing in my mind. There are Peaks and Valleys albums where there's loud and quiet and a lot of variety, and then there's albums that are really even keel, right? So to me, it's more like Balls to the Wall is more like Animal Magnetism. But to talk about these albums sort of in isolation, and I'll see if I can have some comparisons as we go. But first, I wanted to address a couple points that Andee made. So why is Matthias Yabs not talked about to the same extent? I have a feeling it might start from the fact that Rudolph is writing all the music, and he's a rhythm guitarist. He's a staunch rhythm guitarist, and I think you get more interesting chordal songs than you get intricate single note riffs and very rapid fire riffs out of him. So Matthias Yabs is there to distinguish himself more so on the solos, and he does distinguish himself. He's amazing on the solos. He's great that way, right? And another thing, we talk about Gabby's lyrics, and you know when you hear vocalists writing songs where they're just scatting whatever and just trying to get the phrasing down and the vocal melody down and stuff. I have a feeling that for some reason Udo made the best of these lyrics by having amazing phrasing and vocals and where to put the vocal fry and when to go high and low and all that stuff. So these lyrics are almost like lyrics that when you hear bands say, oh, it doesn't mean anything, but it sounded great to sing, kind of thing. So there's a lot of that goes on here as well, right? Yeah. And the final point, so to me, the Accept album is a little bit more like, this is almost the album I would have even preferred Judas Priest to do for British Steel, when they went even keel and they smoothed everything out, and all the little fun, cool little trick things. My favorite Priest album is Hellbent for Leather, and I was very disappointed when British Steel came out. I thought it was their dumbing down album. They're kind of going. It's their Kiss album, as I say, right? So it's almost like this record is. I could imagine this entire record being British Steel and me liking it even more, kind of thing, right? And I remember when this album came out, I actually did like it more than Restless and Wild, because I do find it incredibly well recorded, beautiful guitar sounds, just very locked down and professional. And this is where the comparison with Blackout comes in, because Blackout, I do agree with you guys. I think Blackout is their most creative and most soberly well put together, best crafted album, best sounding album, beautiful, beautiful high end on it, nice punchy bass on it, great guitar sounds. It's an incredible sounding record. And that to me is what Metal Heart is as well. Metal Heart, I think, is their best sounding album, and that is a Dieter Dierks. So to just, I know I'm bouncing back and forth a lot, but I would say with this record, I also like the fact that, Andee, you brought up Judas Priest and AC/DC, and two bands talk like that about themselves, and that's Twisted Sister and Coney Hatch. And to me, this is very much like a Twisted Sister vibe off of like the second Twisted Sister album, I'd say the most. And it's like the first couple of, well, definitely the first Coney Hatch album, where you've got, sometimes I compare bands like, say, Tank and Motorhead as Tank's like the thinking man's Motorhead sort of thing. Well, Twist, I'd say Coney Hatch and Accept are almost like the thinking man's Simple Priest sort of thing. And I love all the songs on here. I love the Teutonicness of it. Just the kind of dark wintry vibe, I suppose, underscored by Winter Dreams being on here. But I love the up-tempo-ness of it, but yet the songs are really simple and just locked down, in that dual guitar, multi-track rhythm guitar sort of feel that you do get out of Priest when you're moving through, say, those first four albums of the 80s kind of thing. And yeah, the treatise about the lyrics is perfect. They are kind of all over the place and very enigmatic, and every song is just like an interesting, intriguing little story on it. I do love the album cover. My favorite album by Accept is Metal Heart, because I just feel like it's less dark. It's almost like I love the perfection of this album, and the more variety, the wider angled lens that they put on the songs versus here. To me, this is very one track mind. It's a beautiful track, and I think both are a huge improvement professionalism wise over Restless and Wild. But oddly enough, Breaker is actually kind of cleaner and glossier than Restless and Wild even is. So that's actually a pretty professional album. Then the first two are not professional at all, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love this album to death. It's got great mystique and intrigue. I remember personally getting it. This actually did come out in 83. Yeah, overseas. And maybe the domestic version is 84. But I remember playing this over and over and over and over again, just loving it to death. It's one of those albums I remember playing, a few hundred times when I first got it. So that's that. And like I say, Scorpions, I would agree that this is my favorite Scorpions album. I think it's a big drop down. After this, you get the dumbing down of the band. And this is the absolute peak in terms of how professional they could be. Animal Magnetism is, again, the even keel album. And just quickly, I'd say song-wise on here, Blackout's a masterpiece, Dynamite's a masterpiece, China White's a masterpiece, and I really, Arizona's a lot of fun. Now is like their version of British Steel, Rapid Fire and Steeler, like the little bit stupider fast songs kind of thing. I did not like that about British Steel. I do not like that about Now and Coming Home on the next album. And there's another fast one on the next one. What was it called? I think there's two on the next album that are dumbed down.
The Same Thrill, I think it's called The Same Thrill.
Yeah, exactly. Both of those. Stop. Okay. Like, give me Virgin Killer any day. Right. So that's a little bit of a downer on here, but yeah, exquisite Dieter Dierks production, and same with Metal Heart. So I probably sounded very scattered. It's been a very strange time with all this Aussie stuff. It's been emotionally up and down. But I hope I made some good points there. I would say on the Accept, I'll go 10 out of 10, and and Blackout, I'll go 9 out of 10. I'm putting my A&R hat on for Blackout. They're both great A&R hat albums. They really are. Metal Heart, I feel, is even a better A&R hat album. They're both great in that respect, where, the record executives could play either of these albums and think, oh, money, money, money. But of course, one of them's got that problematic, strange pig squeal singer who looks a little strange. And it eventually came to pass that they felt that they were hitting a ceiling and they couldn't get any further. I mean, maybe they could have if certain moves had done right along the way, because it is such an appealing, classy, interesting band that was offering more than Judas Priest was offering at this point, I think. So there you go, 10 and a 9.
Okay. Well, this has been quite the panel already. First off, thank you, gentlemen. Now, we all know what my role on the Contrarians is, so I'm going to spend a little more time talking about the Scorpions, I guess. So actually, my favorite Scorpions album goes back and forth between Love Drive and Love at First Sting, but I do like Blackout. And Blackout, every time I listen to it, I think, what is it about this album that strikes me as so different than Love Drive or Animal Magnetism? But actually, if you really just sit down and listen to it, it's really no mystery at all. This is an LA album, despite the fact that it was recorded in Germany. Love Drive is a straight up 1970s style hard rock / heavy metal album. So there's a even though there's 2 years difference, 1980, or excuse me, Animal Magnetism, 1980 for Animal Magnetism, 1982 for Blackout, they could not be more different. And I recently reread an interview, I'd read it before, but it's with George Lynch, and he's talking about recording a Dokken album in the same studio while the Scorpions are recording Blackout. He said Dokken was in the basement in the tiny cheap studio and Scorpions were upstairs in the big expensive studio, and that Matthias would come down and ask him to show him stuff. And he would be like, hey, how does Eddie Van Halen do this? And how do you do this thing? And it takes 2 seconds into Blackout. It opens with Rudolph being Rudolph. Dent, 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 dive bomb. Bam. Matthias never did that previously. That was new for this album. He had become an LA style guitar player. That is the difference between Blackout and Animal Magnetism. And he did it at the perfect time, obviously, because that's when this music, when Rat and Motley Crue and, and to a lesser extent, Ozzy Osbourne and Dio, because Dio certainly never had that massive of popularity, but they took off. They were on the the US Festival, right? Playing Heavy Metal Day to 500,000 people. And they just took off through the stratosphere. And obviously, Love at First Sting was an even bigger album. But I also think that all of that is an illusion, because I think Rudolph never changed even a tiny little bit. And you really only get that updated guitar sound on 4 songs. But it just so happens that 3 of them are the first 3 songs on the album. So it makes this really strong first impression. It sounds very contemporary. And I actually don't think anymore. I used to think, well, the Scorpions changed, but I actually no longer think that. I think that popular taste in music had simply moved to be where the Scorpions were, as opposed to Scorpions changing to be with popular music. And the rest of the album could easily have been leftover tracks from Animal Magnetism or Love Drive. The song, let's see here, No One Like You is functionally indistinguishable from Rock You Like a Hurricane. It's just that really slow mid-tempo, designed for radio. If you're going to get hard rock on the radio, that's what it is. It's easy to digest hard rock. You Give Me All I Need sounds to me exactly like the song Holiday off Love Drive. And in fact, so does, so No One Like You does a little bit. I love that it's so short and so punchy. And I think all of that points to the fact that the Scorpions were a pop band who had hard rock ornamentation. I think they had good 3-minute pop songs. In the early 70s, they had more Hendrix. In the late 70s, they had more UFO. Ironic, given that, Michael is now in UFO. And by the 80s, they're adding a little Van Halen, but it's all ornamentation on Rudolph being Rudolph and Klaus being Klaus. And I will say, I love the fact that you listen to this album, Klaus sounds amazing. He never sounded better. And the fact that he underwent throat surgery before recording this album is incredible. I remember a review when the album came out. I don't remember what outlet it was in, but the reviewer said they must have laid in steel cord, because the guy hasn't lost a beat. He's screaming at the top. I mean, it's just a punchy album. But I still think that it is pop music artistry with LA guitars on top of it. So it's a great album. It's a lot of fun to listen to. Not my favorite Scorpions, but it's really, really good. It was the right music at the right time. Obviously, they shoot off into the stratosphere after this. Now, Accept. Boy, you guys have done a great job already talking about Accept. I will say, like so many things in life, my first exposure to Accept was not on an album. I didn't know anybody who owned the album. It was on the video for Balls to the Wall. And when that came on MTV, I just remember sitting there going, who are these guys? This is the best non-Black Sabbath riff I have ever heard. And then I watched the video and went, are these guys morons? Are they dumb? They clearly do not know what the phrase balls to the wall means. I found out later they were German. I apologize. This is, this is at the time, I guess, 15-year-old, 16-year-old me. But yeah, they don't know what balls to the wall means. Udo riding the wrecking ball through the wall, or the guy standing there peeing up against the wall. It made a visual statement, but clearly has nothing to do with the concept. But what a song. And then a friend of mine got it, and kind of speaking to what Andee was saying earlier, he was almost ashamed to show me the album when he got it. And if you're a little bit younger, I don't know what the demographic for Contrarians is. I'm going to guess it's middle-aged dudes, but I've never seen a breakdown. But if you're a little bit younger and you did not grow up in Reagan-era America, it's impossible for me to describe to you what an assault on the public consciousness this image was, because it was a massive assault. This is the kind of thing that stores would have put like brown paper wrappers on to put it on their shelves. It was a very, I'm not saying America is not uptight now, but it was a hell of a lot more uptight in 1984 when this album came out. So if you were the guy listening to that album, it absolutely raised eyebrows. And I love the complexity of it. I love the idea. If you read interviews with Gabby, and she's done many interviews about this album, and she's like, oh no, there's no gay subtext on this album. I'm 100% hetero. This is a hetero album. And I'm like, sure, I'm willing to 100% accept that as gospel, but you wrote it as a hetero woman and then gave it to a guy to sing. So that absolutely changes the context of everything. And the guys in the band clearly knew what it was. I mean, they may not have been fluent English speakers at that time, but they got the concepts enough. And honestly, I think Europeans just like kicking America in the nuts once in a while and saying, hey, wake up, you guys are too uptight. Everybody just needs to relax. That said, I can't give this album a 10 out of 10. I wish I could, but I think the middle songs are a little weak. And again, I spent so much time listening to this to prepare for this show and deciding why do I think some of the songs are classic and some are not? And it finally hit me, and it's so simple. I can't believe I never noticed it. It's the chorus of vocals. When people talk about the Teutonic sound of Accept, I think, at least to me, what that is the choir of vocals, not Udo's voice. Udo's unique, but it's the people in the background when he's, Udo shrieks and they go, God bless him, all of those things. That's really what makes the song for me. It gave it such a unique flavor. No one else, there were other bands doing riffs, but no one had that choir of backing vocals. But it's only on about 4 songs. And one of them is that write a letter, which is, that is just not nearly as macho as the lyrics would, or as the singing style would like you to believe, right? But it's such a great sound, and it's absolutely unique. No one else ever did that. But there are other songs where what you get is Udo Dirkschneider multi-tracked, or possibly with a short delay. I can't tell on some of them. I'm not a studio engineer, but I know you are definitely getting multiple Udo voices on certain tracks. That's not as effective as when they've got that Teutonic choir behind them. And, you know, I forgive both bands for lyrics that are a little bit out for a native English speaker. Man, their English is a hell of a lot better than my German. So, you know, no shade there at all. It's, you know, it's the same way I felt about Loudness when Loudness put out an album and people were making fun of their albums. I was like, how good is your Japanese? I know my Japanese isn't very good. This guy sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I love both of these. I will agree, except sounds so good. No one ever sounded better than this album, and specifically on Balls to the Wall. That guitar sound is fantastic. And by the way, I recently watched a documentary on YouTube, of all things. They were talking about Flying V guitar players, and they interviewed Wolf Hoffman. He played that lick on a Strat.
Nice.
So
illusion shattered.
there you go. Go figure. But oh, and I want to give a shout out to Herman Frank. I don't think Herman Frank gets enough credit. He's credited rhythm guitar player on this album. I have no idea what he recorded. You know, maybe he recorded everything. Maybe he didn't record a note. I will say when he left the new version of Accept and went solo, those Herman Frank albums are fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you've never been exposed to Herman's career outside of Accept, track the man's stuff down. He's really if you like power metal, it is power metal, but it's aggressive power metal.
That Panzer, is that what it is? Was that Panzer?
I don't. Well, maybe he had a band that was Herman Frank, and he recently did one called Iron Allies.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, pretty good stuff. So these are both great albums. I actually am going to ever so slightly give the nod to Blackout, but clearly I'm in the minority on today's panel. I'm okay with that. And Udo, God bless you.
God bless ya.
Nice.
All right. So there you go. That is Blackout versus Balls to the Wall. If you saw that video and had no idea what the hell was going on, leave it in the comments. I'll never forget the man riding the wrecking ball through the wall. And
Or better yet, write us a letter, right?
Yeah, write us a letter. You'll feel better.
You'll feel better. All right. You know, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Patreon. It's a great community. We'd love to have you. Thank you for spending a little time with us. Really have been looking forward to chatting about these two bands, and we hope to see you very soon in another video. This is the Contrarians signing out. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You guys.